Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
I don't know what it is. Lately, I'm on a kick of things you take for granted. You know, you just take a second. We should take nothing for granted. We should have lots of gratitude in our life. It's been proven that moves our life forward. But things you take for granted when you see traffic and you see how cargo gets moved around, the things that we enjoy, even, it can be a cup of coffee. How'd that get here? It's all through transportation. I believe we take it for granted. Even the drivers and what they do and the hours they put in. We're going to talk about that today, specifically training these drivers that transport all the stuff that we enjoy and retaining them. It's not easy. Think about how many trucks are on the road right now. Add Amazon to that. I've got somebody who is behind all of the safety in that and the training. And he's been helping companies, motor carriers for years, get this right. He is the founder and president of DOT Training Solutions. Matt Freeman is back with us. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hey, doing well, Steve. Thanks for having me back. Yeah, you said a lot there. It's amazing every day how things are transported, the products, the coffee we drink, the daily groceries we need. It's all by transportation.
Sure.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
Everything, when you think about it, everything has to get transported. And I don't, think deep about that stuff until the moment like this comes up. And it's like your car that probably got transported. It was on a carrier. It may have come overseas, then got transported on wheels. Yet, like you said, the food, clothing, all of it comes in typically at some point on a truck or some type of motor carrier. So keeping those safe on the road, training the drivers to make sure they are safe, and also best practices, all of that. I believe it's a huge undertaking. This is what your company does. But to my surprise, there's a shortage of some of these, not just the drivers, but the technicians involved in all of this.
Yeah, absolutely. I get calls all the time. And, the drivers, you don't have the drivers like you used to. Growing up, in the 80s, my family drove trucks and stuff. And, everybody drove a truck. It was a thing. If you weren't working in an industry or military or some type of law enforcement or something, it seemed like everybody drove a truck. And today, it's not like it used to be. Ever since the pandemic, drivers, you don't see the drivers out there like you used to. You have companies that, always constantly hiring drivers. Now, it's never been a shortage that, drivers, they'll go from one company to the next, just, for more money. That's always been a thing for drivers. Someone's going to pay $1 more, they're going to go that direction. But
Sure.
As far as shortages, my customers are constantly saying, hey, I'm trying to get drivers. We're super busy. So it's still a thing out there. For a long time, they tried to promote women in driving, to boom that up pretty good. There's some, groups out there that work with that. Some of the states, because we're talking over the road, for CDLs. Now states that they've talked about, let me back up. In order to drive in interstate commerce in a CDL vehicle, you got to be 21. So, there's some issues there. If you're in the state and you're intra only and you never leave the state, you can be 18. Okay. So there's a lot of things there. So they're needing folks who are over 21 now to get out there and drive. A lot of these veteran guys have been driving the roads for a long time. They're ready to call it quits. They're retiring out because they've been doing it forever. There is a shortage.
Wow.
And so it's kind of crazy right now. I thought it was over with till I had a big conversation with a group of my customers, and they all still said the same thing. Hey, trying to keep drivers, always hiring. Just it was an everyday norm. Still is an everyday norm.
We're always going to need drivers. When and yes, you brought some memories in my mind going back in the day that there were more there, you would always hear, yeah, oh yeah, Jimmy drives a truck, for this company. You
Mhm,
rarely hear that, but it's the same thing as plumbers. You
mhm.
can't find plumbers. There's a lot of free training in that trade, and the trades, be electricians as well. Um, I don't know why. Yeah, it's a younger generation just doesn't see that it's a glamorous job, but heck, it pays a lot of money and we need it. And as far
Yes,
as I can see, we're going to need plumbers in our lifetime. We're always going to need them. Same
that's
thing
right.
with drivers and trucks, more so now. Would think of it 30 years ago, 25, whatever. Did you ever think that there would be more need for drivers now than there was back then? And now when we look, well, we got all this technology, yes, but that's just exponentially created more demand for drivers.
Yeah,
Amazon, OMG,
yeah,
like
they're
there it is.
huge. Yeah, when they got into their own doing their own trucks, and not only their own trucks, they third party out just like everybody else does.
Mm,
Your home delivery folks, these guys that are going to Amazon, they're not always in an Amazon truck. They're on their own personal vehicle, so they're still operating in commerce.
yes. Yeah.
Um, it's really crazy out there is, and then you look at the mechanics. I have customers who are opening up shops, but their only dilemma is not opening up a new facility or affording it. It's now they got to have somebody who can work on the vehicles that come in. So the
Mm,
technicians can be an issue to where they want to make sure that, hey, we got a good trained mechanic who's working, we're talking about companies who work on trucks. They're working on the trailers, the tractors themselves. And um, again, it's every day I get calls. Hey, I'd be doing better if you could find me a mechanic or you can find me
wow.
a registered inspector. And it's just, I don't know what's going on in the world today, just with everything and why folks aren't out there jumping at it. They're great fields. And we got to have them. If we don't have mechanics and inspectors and drivers, um, I don't know. It's one of those things. I don't know what
Mm.
I don't know how to see the future with it.
Do you think maybe, Matt, that people just aren't aware that this exists? If somebody has a little bit of, is into cars, let's just say, maybe fixing things back when they were a little bit younger, whatever it might be, and doesn't realize that, yeah, there's a shortage of technicians in this arena. Same thing with registered inspectors. Unless you don't know. So maybe it's the awareness out there that we don't realize that these positions are available and in need right now.
I think some of it is I'll skip over to the registered inspector side of it is the requirements, the experience levels. There's a lot of folks out there who want to do it and go out there
Mm,
and make a good living at doing it. But they don't have, per the regulations on the inspector side of it, registered inspectors who work on the cargo tanks, they got to have a minimum of 3 years experience plus training to do it on their own. So they can go work for somebody. They just can't go out and sign off on the inspection like we've talked in the past. So that's one issue on the inspector side. The driver side, the drivers, their primary thing is they need to go down, get a CDL, get a permit, and start working with somebody, so they can get their experience in.
mm.
There's so many different ways they can do that. I mean, it's not really that simple, but they can go to CDL schools. They can go to work with a company who's going to work with them to build them up, help them get that CDL. So there's so many ways out there that it's not like it's hard. They got to go. They're open up. You should say open up the yellow pages. Open up open up the ads. Look, there's jobs there now. Wherever kids go to find things today, I don't even know where to start anymore. But
Well, yeah, then that was replaced by Craigslist, and I don't know if
right,
how much that is still.
right.
But yeah, I mean, even I'm sure if you looked on Indeed.com or Monster, those jobs are there. Let's look at the qualifications. We talk about not enough technicians. We talk about not enough inspectors to take care of it. Can we just briefly look at what's needed to be in these positions?
Yeah. So, but basically, like on the driver, what do they need? They just need to have a good driver's license. Really, they need to have the right CDL. Part of that is they have to get a medical card if they're an interstate driver, regardless if it's CDL. Pass the medical test. It's a very simple, simplistic test. It's just a physical. That's all it is, physical. Okay. Once you pass the physical, you turn it into your CD with your CDL. It goes into your CDL if it's a CDL. Okay.
Hmm.
And then you're good to go to find to go out and find a job. Um, or if you're involved with it is a CDL vehicle. The other thing they have to make sure um is that they pass a drug test.
Sure.
So you can't it's a 5 panel test that you're in or you have to take, and what I mean, that's just 5 different drugs that they test you for. Okay. So you just gotta stay clean, keep driving. It's not a lot to it. So if you're not afraid to get out there and drive a big rig, uh, or even a local, not a big rig, but just another smaller commercial vehicle, that they're still needed. You don't need anything for that, but just depending on the state that you're in, the commercial license they require.
Do you need a CDL if you're going to be an inspector or a technician?
No,
Okay.
not a requirement.
Hmm. Interesting. All right.
So, but there are a handful of like technicians that have to have a CDL, because what are they doing? They're probably pulling these trucks in and out of the shops, right?
Right. Okay.
There's probably a good handful of them that do. Um, but a lot of times what they do, they'll have a driver, come in, do the pulling in for them because it already has one. Or if it's on a private lot, they don't need anything. They can just pull it in. But once
Sure.
they get on the interstate, they have another shop on the other side of the road. They cross that intersection. Guess what? Now they're legal because they're in commerce now.
Wow. Okay. Um, I gotta believe there's so many people out there that may work in a shop or have an affinity for fixing trucks, but never even considered that this could be part of it. Um, does this pay well, in your opinion, based on just looking at other positions related to it?
I think it pays well. Really depends on the employer,
Sure.
obviously, and depending on some places, the customers, they have tech levels. So you have tech 1, 2, and 3. So depending on where you're going, you can just go up. The more you know how to do, the more pay there is. Now, if I can't give you an exact amount that's an average,
Sure.
I don't know because it's all over the board.
Right.
But yeah, it's a very good pay. And one thing to be a mechanic or to do annual inspections, like we talked about. I think when Randy was on, they do your annual vehicle inspections. All they need to have is 1 year's experience. Working in a shop, going to a tech school. You know, a lot of these mechanics out there, they probably got a GED or a high school diploma because that's all they've ever done was work with their hands.
Right.
And that's all they need. They got the experience. Some of these guys grow up on their family farms and work on the tractors and the vehicles, and they'll still meet the requirements. So you don't have to have a whole lot. You just got to know uh trucks, motors, engines, things like that.
Even looking at school now, so many high schools, and even if you go to even start with a community college, they don't push the trades anymore. It's all about getting you ready, even high school, get you ready for college, get you ready for college. All this other stuff has kind of gone by the wayside. I remember when I went to school, there was auto shop. There
Mhm.
was, I loved it, industrial arts. There was all of that. You don't really see that so much more. Now it's prep for college. What if you don't want to go to college? What if that's not your plan? You just you want to learn a trade or you're handy with your hands, whatever it might be. It's not out there, and I think this needs to get reversed. We're in a bad situation, and I don't mean just for engines. Same thing
Mhm.
with plumbers. Same thing with all of these other trades right now.
Yes, no, you're so right, and you don't hear about the schools like you used to. You know, the tech schools used to be,
Yeah.
you used to really hear a lot about it. And I work with some of the tech schools, when I've been called, give my, my advice and things for them. Volunteered if needed, to come out and give a talk.
Hmm.
Uh, there's so much opportunity, and especially the guys who don't want to go 4 years of school. They want to go to school and learn about what they're going to do for a living.
Right.
And it's a lot of them is you pick that trade. If it's a plumber, if it's a which is a pipe fitter or electrician, you go to school to learn these trades, and there's unions and different things out there that they can get involved with, uh, to get into the field. So I don't think there's any excuses out there of as far as educational experience for folks. It's just that they need, I want to see them get out there and drive, see the country, go out there and do the inspections, work on the vehicles. I come from a past of family who drove trucks.
Hmm.
Like I said, both my grandfathers had uncles, cousins in Southeast Missouri, where my family come from. You didn't have a whole lot of work, so you either drove a truck, got in the military, went in law enforcement, worked the factories, just done a lot of work down there, and or did construction. Construction was always an option. Worked the fields. A lot of people worked the farm fields and stuff because that's what they did. Um, so there's lots of things out there that I've never understood why, uh, young generation and even middle and older generation aren't doing. I don't, there's so much out there.
Yeah. You mentioned construction. Nobody would do anything without the supplies being transported.
That's right.
There would
And
be
that's
no
an issue.
construction.
That's an issue right there with anybody I know doing construction right now. They're still
Wow.
waiting on stuff to get transported to them. It's either been on a ship waiting to get on a truck, or they don't have a truck to get it to where they need it to go.
Yeesh. And during COVID, it was even worse. Supply chain and all of that. When we talk about a technician connected to motor carriers, what does that technician do? Or are we talking a mechanic? Is that what that is?
We're talking a mechanic.
Okay.
Yeah, it just
Okay.
depends on what field you're in. Some people call their inspectors techs.
Okay.
I always try to separate: are you a mechanic, are you a registered inspector, or are you both? Because just because you work in a shop and you're doing mechanic work, okay, you're working on engines, doesn't mean you're working on the tank too.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
sometimes you got guys that are very diverse and they can do it all. Sometimes you have, Joey does, this job, Susie does this job, someone else
Mm.
comes in and does the finished product. It just depends on, the shop and what they're doing.
If you are a registered inspector, do you have to be able to repair or it's completely separate? Maybe somewhat related. You got to know the inner workings to some degree. But do you have to be able to repair the vehicle at the same time?
Yes and no. So a repair for an inspector, okay, is welding. Okay, you're actually welding to the tank. So if they are certified to let's say there's a crack, or just keep it simple, and the crack's got to be repaired. So can they repair that? Yes, if they have the certification to do that. Okay. But if they don't, then someone else in the shop would have to do it, or they would have to send that tank over to someone else to have that weld done. So it could be both. If that shop has the qualifications with an R stamp to do that through NBIC, it's the program that gives you the certifications to be able to do that, the certificate certifications. So yeah, I mean you can. It just depends. A
Mm.
lot of your bigger shops will have someone in there who can do that, so they're not third partying out their own business.
So it's just your value is higher if you can take care of all of that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Where do you
The
learn
more you
this?
know.
Let's talk about that. How do you, let's say somebody does some repair, maybe they've done some auto repair, maybe worked on trucks. It's okay. I know I do know a lot of guys that have done that over the years, and uh, got out of it or moved into different positions? Because
Mhm.
it can beat on your body after a long
Mhm.
time. But if you wanted to change it up, how would you learn this aspect of the business?
Again, just pick it up as a trait, working with someone else, go to school, because there are different types of welds and things that you're allowed to use. So just depending on what type of welder they are.
Mm,
I'm not a welder, so I can only talk about this much about what the weld. I mean, I understand that doing the actual weld, I'm not a welder. It just depends. Really, most of the folks I know who learned either went to school or they were mentored by someone who showed them how to do it. Um, then you got to send in samples, do a test, so the association knows that you understand, know what you're doing. So you'll every so often you'll have to get a piece of metal and do a certain weld on it, for example, and it sends it in and I'll make sure you did it right and everything else. So there's different ways they do it. They also have auditors that come out and make sure that you're keeping everything up to speed because there's a compliance side to that as well. If you do a repair on a tank, you got to keep track of that and record it. And so there's a process to it. So it's a little bit of quite a bit of a learning curve on that side of it. But I tell you what, I have folks all the time, again, customers asking me if I can get a good welder, or if it's another one of those things that just learning to do a little different trade, but it's such a specialty because it is a cargo tank.
mm.
Not saying not anybody can walk up and say, "Hey, I'm a welder, I can do this." It don't work that way. You got to meet that criteria to do those certain welds.
There's welders. There's another one. We take that for granted. But
Mhm.
look at everything that's around us. There is always going to be a need for a welder of certain types. Now we're talking about a certain type here, cargo tanks,
Mhm.
but just in general, there's always going to be a need. There's always going to be a need for a welder.
Yeah, it's a crazy world right now with things. Every time I turn around, I have a customer, and or I get a phone call. Hey, I want to do this, but what do I need to do? Inspectors.
Mm,
They'll call me, or I'll have a guy who's a driver. Hey, I've been driving. I've been transporting cargo tanks most of my life. I know how to look at them, inspect them, work on them. But then the criteria comes down to I want to be a registered inspector. I want to do the inspections on them. Well, do you have 3 years experience? So now it comes back to every day. Hey, I want to do this, and then I have customers going, hey, can you find me one? But the problem is now with the regulations, there's kind of a like, okay, now the regulations aren't allowing it to move forward because all your mentors and everybody that's got the experience are retiring out. So
mm,
so right now they're working the regulations. We're trying to get the regulations changed to loosen that experience. So instead of 3 years experience, we get somebody with just an example, maybe a year and a half, or they're able to go out and work on a specific tank and do so many inspections to get them the experience to see if the rules can not be more lenient, but a little bit looser on folks who are qualified. So that would definitely help. And then once that happens, you're going to see a big boom into the repair area,
uh,
inspecting and repairing these tanks.
when you think of the magnitude here,
Oh yeah,
it's huge in terms of the size of the country, the number of vehicles on the road, all of this. Yeah, we got to do something, just
yeah,
in that.
and it's growing. It's not getting shorter.
Right,
You know,
right.
you got chemicals, you got gases, you got fuels, and every time you know, no matter which way the direction the political side goes with different things and fuels and gases, there's always going to be cargo tanks out there that got to be inspected.
Yeah, yeah, without
Um,
a doubt. Matt, how do we connect with you? If this resonates with somebody or somebody has a question or even is connected to a company that does motor carrying, how do we find you?
yeah, you can give me a call at 573-416-8203, or you can reach me at my website, dottrainingsolutions.com. And my email is matt@dottrainingsolutions.com.
Interestingly, this all comes down to one thing: safety first. That's what we're talking about here.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Wow. And all the more reason why it's even more important. We're not just talking just about commerce and the economy, it's the safety as well. Thanks for bringing a lot of this to light, as we talk during these podcasts. Really appreciate it. And thanks for being here today.
All right. Thanks for having me, Steve. Take
We'll
care.
be right back.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.